What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things.
With Shawn and Andrew.
A podcast all about couples.
And the things they go through.
Today, we have Dr. Barbara and Dr. Michael Grossman.
That's right. Let me just read you a little bit about these two because they're pretty impressive. So together, they have guided more than 30,000 clients to successful marriages.
Mm-hmm.
And to accompany their highly successful book, which is called The Marriage Map, they hold classes to help couples enhance their relationship and satisfy cherished dreams.
One of Andrew and I's most beneficial things we ever did was premarital counseling. You know, we talk about marriage counseling a lot, and we think it's really great to get their perspective on it as actually being the doctors behind the scene who are counseling. I thought was really cool. To give you a little bit of information on Dr. Barbara, she has degrees in psychology and theology. She majored in philosophy and psychology from NYU. She's a licensed individual marriage and family therapist. Her background integrates spiritual and psychological perspectives. And between her and Dr. Michael Grossman, they teach a highly acclaimed course on improving your marriage called Restoring Romantic Relationships.
That's right. And Dr. Michael Grossman is a board-certified family physician and a fellow of the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He's practiced this since 1978, and he specializes in anti-aging and regenerative medicine using bioidentical hormone replacement. Mm-hmm. He's a graduate of NYU School of Medicine, and just together they're really impressive.
Yeah.
Here's one thing that struck me as we were having their conversation. They teach this course. They have these books, and someone challenged me recently to be as strategic in your marriage and invest as much in your marriage as you do your career or your hobbies or whatever you're into. And I think it does get so easy over time to just kind of have a wife there or have a spouse there that you're not really putting forethought into or taking initiative and investing and spending time with. And I think that was my big takeaway from our conversation here was that, gosh, you know, they've been doing this for decades, and the people that come to them and take their course are looking to invest in their marriage, which in and of itself is impressive.
They give a lot of solid takeaways as to how to actively work on your marriage and your relationship. Dr. Michael actually gives us some anti-aging tips as well, which is fascinating, and to hear their dynamic of how they've kind of taken his anti-aging science and married it with her psychological science. It's been really interesting. He said there's definitely effects on happy marriages and unhappy marriages on your physical health.
I had a lot of questions about anti-aging because I know nothing about it. So that's a fun part of the conversation. But they're also big fans of Dancing with the Stars.
Yes, which we talked a lot about.
And that's one of the things that they do together as a couple is do dancing competitions, which is pretty great. Yeah. It made me want to do them. You up for it?
No. Anyways, if you want to, babe, I'll do it with you. Without further ado, we have Dr. Barbara and Dr. Michael Grossman.
Let's hit it. All right. Joining the show, we have the Doctors Grossman. And by that, I mean Dr. Michael Grossman and Dr. Barbara Grossman. They're both doctors. They both, I'm very excited to talk with each of you because I think together you bring a wonderful perspective, but you each have, I feel like, your areas of strength. And thank you for joining the show.
Pleasure to be here.
Nice to be with you.
In reading both of your resumes, you guys are probably the smartest people we've had on this show and way overqualified. Between NYU, Columbia, and can I say multiple doctorates between both of you?
Well, Michael's an MD. I'm a PhD.
I mean, very impressive.
Casual.
Yeah. So, Dr. Barbara, you specialize in the psychology and psychiatric side of medicine?
I see individuals, couples, and families. I look to solve problems, and ultimately my intention is to grow people.
Wow.
Wonderful. And then Dr. Michael, are we correct in saying you work in anti-aging and regenerative medicine?
That is correct. I keep people young, and I repair people's injuries in natural ways, and I help women looking younger because they like looking younger, and
men like it too.
Natural hormone replacement is foundational to staying young after the age of 45.
And then baseline question here. I'm curious, how long have you guys been married?
50 years.
And how did you guys meet? Sorry, babe.
We met in college. I usually say that we've had 3 different marriages. So we got married, we were 20 and 21.
Wow.
Wow.
And for 10 years, we had a great marriage that I loved because we did whatever I thought was right. And Barbara was very cooperative. And then everything changed. She went back to graduate school. They taught her to think for herself, have her own ideas. And then we had 6 years of wrestling with difficult issues between us. Barbara wanted things this way, I wanted things that way, and it was very difficult. And it took a long time for us to learn the skills that we needed to make the marriage work when there's 2 independent people. And so we had a lot of different mentors and people who helped us to grow and learn. And then after that, we gained these skills, and that's what we teach to other people, these skills that really make a huge difference.
Do you ever miss the first 10 years of marriage, Dr. Michael?
Do I ever miss it?
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever we have a disagreement, why can't I just be right
Yeah.
and do it my way? Yeah, but no, the love between us increases as time goes on. But we have such different personalities, such different needs and desires, but we have a lot of overlapping things, but we have different personalities. And so, yeah, it's often a challenge.
And Dr. Barber, I'm curious, is that a good thing to each have different, interests and desires and ambitions? Or, I mean, it's simpler if you had the same one,
Well, it's important to be individuals. Every relationship needs stability, but also it needs the differences to keep things exciting. And so a little bit of mystery as well as stability is a good recipe for a relationship. And if you honor yourself and you follow your own spirit, it keeps the attraction going. And we have similarities. We have similarities and differences in our temperament, and we have similarities and differences in our interests. And but we come together and we have a lot of overlap that keeps us bonded. But I find Michael very exciting because he's so interesting. He does so many great things, and a lot of those great things I can't do. So I respect him and admire him greatly, and that creates juice in a relationship. And I think to some degree, I'm that way for Michael. I do things that he can't do, and that keeps the excitement and the chemistry going.
A romantic relationship is a peculiar relationship. It's so different from any other one. Parent-child, brother or sister, friendships. It's so different. A romantic relationship is like a fire. You have to keep putting the wood on there to get that and to keep oxygen flowing in, and it just constantly needs that attention or else it goes out. Whereas these other relationships are kind of like the ocean. It just is there. It's quietly there. So if you don't see your brother and sister for a year or so, no big deal. As soon as you meet them, you're right back loving them and relating and so on. You can't do that in a romantic relationship. You got to constantly nurture it. So it's a different quality of relationship, and it has that intensity because you have to have the differences. Without the differences, you would just have 2 lawyers relating to each other in a business, which is okay, but there's no passion there.
Dr. Michael, you were talking about your own personal relationship and how you said you feel like your marriage has gone through 3 different marriages within your 20 plus years. We've heard the same thing from a lot of different couples that we have interviewed and that we've gotten feedback from, of people change over time and they go through these really hard periods of time where they aren't sure whether it's worth it to continue because they feel like they're married to someone new. So if you're talking about a fire and keeping it alive, how did you guys within those 6 years of kind of relearning each other say to yourself, okay, this is this is how it's supposed to be. How do we work through it to make sure it lasts forever?
That is a great question. It's a very, very big question. And it takes a variety of skills to work through these changing times. First, let's look at the changes that you refer to. So Dr. Barbara is the expert, but I'm the one who popularizes all of her great work. So she wrote a PhD thesis on how people change and grow over a lifetime. And there's many experts who have written books and done research and so on, but the basic understanding of the pattern is that every human being goes through changes. When you're a little baby, you're sucking on mother's breast, you're totally involved with mother. It's just you and mother. You cry and the milk comes in and you're happy. Get to be 2 years old, all of a sudden mother doesn't do everything you want. You used to just cry and mother would jump. Now you say, no, you can't do that. You have to, finish eating this, or don't throw the food on the floor, or whatever it is. I mean, you make rules about it. And so then as a 2-year-old, you're feeling more separate from mother, from those things you really love. Then you get to be 4, 6, 8 years old, and you love being part of the family. So once again, you're feeling close to the things you love, a little different than when you're 6-month-old, but you love being part of the family when you're 8 years old. What happens when you're 13? You want your own space again. You know the right way everything should be. And what do you mean I can't go to that party? I want to go. So you're feeling more separate from the things you love. And that happens to everybody. You get to be in your 20s, you fall in love, and then you just love being part of this new relationship and you're feeling close. You get to be 35, 40 years old. What happens? You've had enough of all this family stuff. You want your own thoughts. You want your own career. You want your own interests, and you need space for yourself and for your new desires. That's the time where it's very difficult in relationships. You want to say something?
Right. There's an inevitability with a man and a woman because as men and women, we don't have exactly the same pattern. So if you get together at 20 and you're close and bonded, eventually if you have children, there's a differentiation of roles. Women stay bonded and relationship oriented and connected and accommodating, while a man, because he works outside the home, has to develop his independence and competence. And so you begin to be in a different place. And eventually your children get to school age. There's more space for the woman. The woman catches up with that and grows her competence, gets involved in the world. Now that sounds like a good thing that you're both in the same place, except that there's a possibility of two independent individual people looking for competence and accomplishment can become, get engaged in power struggle because they both are confident, they know they're right about their point of view. And so that's a very testy time for a relationship. And if you have skills and you survive that, you move into a space where you're more integrated, heart and mind. And that's where you cash in on your relationship. It's really much sweeter and lovelier, but that's a very hard time to get through. Most couples don't know how to do that. That's why we see so much divorce in our society, because we're a society that really emphasizes competence and accomplishment and making money and so forth. And so most of us get headed to power struggle and things break down. And so there's this 10, 15 plus year period that's very, very challenging. And most couples don't know how to get through it. And I think that's what I'm looking to speak to, because you can get through it and enjoy the riches of the journey. And what it does is it grows you. You don't have to start over and begin that cycle again with someone else, but it also allows you to have a long-term relationship where you grow together, enrich your life together. And the final, icing on the cake is your children have two parents who love them and grow them up under the same roof together. And so not only does your family thrive, but the whole culture thrives. And that 15-year period is so tumultuous for most couples. And I'm not sure therapists know how to get people through that, frankly. So that's why we're, looking to be in public to let people know there is a way through it and it's worth it, because the tension between the two of you and the challenges and conflicts that come up, if you know how to talk it through and work it through, you both grow tremendously. You become infinitely wiser people and more deeply loving people. And just everybody wins.
So you're saying the power struggle phase is 10 to 15 years?
No, the power struggle phase could as short as it takes for you to learn skills. The transition period of 6 months to a year until you realize you're in trouble and find help is maximum necessary. But because people don't have the skills, it gets prolonged and it becomes torturous until people give up.
So how do we make it through?
You have to learn how to, what I find is most couples do not know how to talk together. And that what they do with conversation is, just makes it worse.
So what we teach when we have different classes, the short version is we teach 3 secrets to falling in love forever. The first secret is what we told you about what happens over a lifetime. You and your partner are going to go through changes, whether you want it or not. Who you are when you're 40 is different than who you are when you're 20. And if you recognize that that's not a personal thing, your partner is not behaving just because they want to be mean and cruel to you. They're doing that because that's their natural, that's what happens in life. We're changing. And so that's one secret, to see the big picture. Don't expect a smooth ride in a romantic relationship. It's not designed to be a smooth ride. It's designed to have that passion and intensity. You have security, but you also have to have mystery. So that's the first secret. So now the second secret that we teach is what Dr. Barber referred to, is how we listen to each other. So we teach a secret that we call listening without interrupting. You have to really listen to your partner. If when you're listening, you're planning what you're going to say, you're going to argue with them and say, okay, as soon as they stop talking, I'm going to tell them this, this, and this, and I'm going to win the argument. And then you're not really listening. You have to really listen to them like you're trying to understand this person who's so different than you. How do they see the world? Why do they feel that way? How come they don't see it the way I see it? That's really listening to them, trying to really...
Can I just interrupt real quick? I'm
sure.
kidding.
No,
I'm
no.
kidding.
Oh
I'm
my
kidding.
God.
I'm kidding. Sorry.
You're funny.
I
just had a heart attack.
You don't like that. I'm
Oh my
kidding.
God.
I'm sorry. I did.
That's
I
cool.
ruin the
That's very
moment?
funny.
That's good.
Can I say, so Michael's abstracting what we teach, but we actually put couples through drills, how to do it. We hold their hand and teach them how to do it, because to apply, it sounds so simple when Michael talks, but to apply it is hard. It takes a lot of self-discipline. And we add another layer to that, because a lot of what we feel strongly about in life comes from our childhoods. And we teach couples how to share what injuries, what perceptions of hurt they have from their childhood that makes what they want so important to them that they're willing to fight for it. And it creates a different partnership when you understand where these strong feelings come from your partner, and even from yourself, that they're not random, aggravating positions, but it comes from deep feelings from the past. And so it creates a partnership where you come to really give and receive from each other in a very beautiful way.
Right. So for instance, Barbara has a history. When she was 2 years old, she lost her natural father in a divorce, and she really essentially never saw him again. And so she has this fear that's sort of like irrational from my point of view. And she wants to make sure if I go away that I call her and tell her I'm not dead yet, I'm still alive. I go, I'm busy, but now I understand now that she's not doing it to torture me or because she doesn't trust me. She's doing it because this is her fear from early childhood. So I understand, and she asks nicely, please. So then I understand it. It changes the whole interaction. And I have my own things from childhood. My mother would yell a lot. And I hate criticism. So Barbara has to be really, really, really sensitive to saying something that I could interpret as criticism, because then I might just fall apart emotionally. So she's very sensitive to that. And that's just my stuff. So we all have different things.
And we teach couples how to identify what it is their sensitive spots are, so they can communicate what they need at those times. Really, it really creates a partnership around working together.
I have to admit something. On the whole drive over here to record this podcast, all I could think about was what we're having for dinner.
Babe, you know I'm always thinking about food too, so this is music to my ears. What are we making tonight?
Well, I've been in the mood for seafood, so I was planning on making our fish tacos. Your favorite, with the Gorton's air-fried fish fillets and air-fried butterfly shrimp that they recently launched earlier this year. I was going to make a quick grocery store run after work and pick up everything we need.
I'm always down for seafood, and the last time you made those, I was so impressed. Since the fish is air-fried, the breading isn't really heavy and doesn't weigh me down and make me feel sluggish. It has that crispy, light-as-air feeling like it was actually straight from the air fryer.
Well, I agree. They're super crispy and never greasy, and that's because they come already air-fried for you, so all you have to do is pop them in the oven to cook, and boom. You don't even need an air fryer. Plus, because the products are air-fried by Gorton's, it leaves out the grease and lowers the fat, which is awesome since we're always trying to make better dinner choices for our kids.
Now the whole drive home, I'm going to be thinking about this meal. I'm hyped for dinner. We also wanted to share that we love Gorton's new air-fried fish fillets and air-fried butterflied shrimp so much that we're doing a hashtag Gorton's Light as Air Challenge. Check out our social media to find out more, and check your local grocery store to try Gorton's for yourself.
Wow. I'm excited too, and hungry. Let's get back to the show. We both have a bunch of questions. Is it a fair expectation within marriage to assume, believe, or think that your spouse is capable of healing from childhood traumas or things that you just talked about within your marriage? Or is it an expectation of, I need to learn those and forever act accordingly because of them?
I think you both have to collaborate in the process of healing. The person who has injuries has to be open to connecting the dots and understanding that it comes from the past. It doesn't come from your partner, and expressing yourself in a way that can be heard comfortably. And then the partner who is giving the new behavior, you collaborate, you work together. It's not like your partner just heals you and you're passive, but it's a true partnership where you're not just growing your lives externally, but you're growing internally by working together.
And I would add that my job is not to insist that Barbara heals her past. And until you heal the past, I don't want any discussion about it. No, my attitude is whatever I can do to make things easier for her, that it makes her happy. I will try to do that. I don't always say yes. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I have to negotiate. But I have to know that my job is to love her so much that she feels taken care of. And she has all these specific requests that make her happy. And they don't make sense to me. And I have to accept that. They may never make sense to me, except I understand that's her journey of growing and developing. And that's what happened when she was 2. Those are not simple things to get over. And that's my job, is to accept her and love her as she is. And when I can cooperate with her request, then I do that. That's our job with our partner.
And it's reciprocated.
That's so powerful. And you've mentioned the word mystery several times, which I feel like could be applied to both like individual ambitions and what I want versus what you want, but also kind of our individual wounds and like the mystery kind of behind that. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it's the mystery that can be so frustrating, where I'm like, I don't understand this about you, Shawn. But it's also the thrill of it, as you mentioned earlier, where it's like, if you approach the mystery with the right perspective, it can be the best part about the relationship, because you're dealing with another individual, which, like parenting has shown me, it's a joy to watch someone pursue their own life and like let them stumble every now and then and, let them figure it out. But my dumb joke earlier derailed us, Dr. Michael. So I think you're on your way to the 3rd bullet point there after the no interruption.
Right. Okay. That's perfect timing, because the third secret is that don't expect that your partner will naturally and intuitively know what it is you desire, because who you are now is different than who you were when you first met.
Mm.
And whatever their desires are, they have their desires and you have your desires. And so you have to learn the skill of making requests of each other. But it has to be nicely that you make a request. So you have to say, when you talk to me, I want you to have a tone of voice that's gentle and soothing, and I want you to smile when you make a request. I don't want you to look like you're angry about whatever it is. So that's what she has to do when she makes a request to me.
And that would make you really happy.
That would make me really happy. Yes. Thank you very
Fine,
much.
I can do that.
She wants me to clean out the garage. She likes neatness. I said, all right, well, it's very important she asks nicely about that.
Is there not frustration that could be stemmed from that, though? So say Shawn asked me to request things of her, and I smile and say it in a nice tone. But then, I fall back into my normal habits of requesting maybe offhandedly, and I'm not looking at her in the eye, and I'm definitely not smiling. And then she's like, hey, not only did you not honor my request, you didn't even request it in the right way. So how do you navigate that?
Well, if when your relationship is going well, there's enough goodwill that your response can be said in a different way. And so all you have to say is, just like I said to Michael, would it really make you happy? Instead of complaining that he's saying it in a rough way.
Yeah.
Again, you want to do as much as you can to accommodate the requests that you know about. So if you have if things are going well, there's a certain wealth of goodwill that can allow you to make that correction simply. If there's not enough goodwill and that tone of voice or that the choice of words feels edgy and critical, you just ask for clarification. Only one of you has to stay conscious for the relationship to stay on track. But if you start reacting because you're sensitive, then you both go down. And that's, then you have to repair it, and it gets more complicated.
What do you mean by stay conscious?
You want to be conscious of what a positive cycle is, of creating a conversation that has a good outcome. And so if one of you is cranky and the other partner is aware that they're cranky, the partner who's aware can keep it floating in a positive way, even if it starts out cranky. If you're both cranky, you go down for the count, and you have to resuscitate the relationship in the next bunch of hours or days, because you've both lost with each other. You want to win with each other as much as possible. And that means listening. And if you don't like the request, or say the request is in a negative form, or you don't like the request, you can negotiate it. You can say, I'm happy to do that. Is it possible? It would really work for me if you could say that in a positive way. You can recover if you're conscious. But if your energy's low, or you feel cranky about other things and you react in a negative way, you're both negative, and the relationship feels out of sorts until you wake up and rebuild it, recover it.
Dr. Barbara, you alluded before the interview to men and women being different. And I feel like especially in a situation like that, naturally the response might be different. How do those what are those differences, and how would you suggest people navigate them?
So in the world of being conscious, I don't think we're different. Each of us has the responsibility of being aware of the relationship and being aware of what one's goal is, and recovering from a negative moment. The differences I'm talking about is developmental. If you're a couple that have come together because you have great affinities and you're kind of in the same place when you start, what happens, I think I've already mentioned this, the partner who is the domestic partner, whether it's male or female, stays in a mentality of bonding and adaptability, because that's what parenting is mothering is about, or parenting is about. It's being responsive to the needs of others. The partner who goes out in the world and has goals and has to take responsibility for creating a business or making a successful career, they become strategic and focused on accomplishing goals. And so you find that the partner who's domestic is in their right brain, they're in their heart. The partner who's career oriented is in their head. And that's a collision course for a couple, because those are different conversations, being in your heart and being in your head. And then, the couple either needs to understand that. And if they're very, very mature and self-disciplined, they can overcome that just out of self-discipline. But it's important for a couple to understand that the woman, the domestic partner, and the working partner needs to develop the opposite, the heart or the mind aspects, so that their conversations can be integrated and balanced, heart and mind. And we do that by intention through growing people through skills. Because once you integrate your heart and your mind, the world looks different to you. When you're living in your mind and you're being strategic and goal oriented, you have like half a pie. You don't realize it. If you're in your heart and you're bonding and accommodating to other people's needs, you're in a different half of the pie. And so it's much harder to bridge that gap. And couples feel that, and they feel disconnected, and it's a hard time for a couple. And we're here to say you can grow through that and grow together.
I feel like, for the most part, every couple we've gotten to interview that has gotten through the hard times and had a successful, quote unquote, marriage, has said similar things in a broad sense of marriage is very hard and relationships are very hard and you have to work through them and it takes work. But I feel like the general publicity that marriages and relationships get is, if it's not easy, then it's not meant to be. And I feel like people shine such a light on divorce, and you hear all of these people in the news saying, well, he just wasn't my person, or she just wasn't my person, or we were different people. Why do you think that is? And why do you think, especially the up and coming generation, is so hooked on this idea of, if it's not easy between us, it must not be worth the effort?
Right. Well, I would say several things. One, the nature of marriage in today's world is different than it was 150 years ago. So marriage prior to 150 years ago, for 1,000 years before that, very clearly defined roles between men and women. Women only started working in World War II when the men were off fighting. We needed someone to work in the factories. Women weren't working prior to that. I mean, the vast majority of women before World War II, they weren't working. So now we have both men and women are working, so that the quality of the marriage relationship is just very different. You didn't divorce 150 years ago because that wasn't done, because you each had your thing. If your husband had a job, brought the money home, and the wife was taking care of the kids, that was enough. All the other stuff we're talking about is icing on the cake, So now we want a lot more than that, and we expect a lot more than that. One of the things we write in our book is stories about fairy tales, and these fairy tales are either hundreds of years old, or the one about Psyche and Eros, Psyche and Cupid, a few thousand years old. But they describe this process. So the story, in short, between Psyche and Eros. Psyche was a goddess. She came back to Earth to become a human being, and she was so beautiful, and no one would marry her because she was so beautiful. Then Cupid, or Eros, as he's known in the Greek version, he was going to shoot an arrow into her and have her fall in love with a monster, because that's what her mother, the goddess Aphrodite, wanted. And he saw how beautiful she was, and he actually scratched himself on his own arrow, and he fell in love with Psyche. So here he is. He makes a deal with Psyche and says, I want to marry you. I want you to come live with me, but you can never see my face because I'm a god.
In the light.
Right. She can only be with him at nighttime when it was completely dark. And she did that for some period of time.
Isn't that just like a man who doesn't want to share his insides?
Right. You can only see him in the dark. She loved being with him. They were in love, but she had a desire to look at him. So she came with a little light, a little candle, and looked at him at night while he was sleeping and saw how beautiful he was. And he was so beautiful, it shocked her because she didn't know who he was. She dripped some of the oil on him. He woke up and he said, you cheated. And he got up and left and went back to his mother, Psyche. He went back to his mother, Aphrodite. So here she is, all alone. And then she goes through this long process of trying to get back, asking everybody, how do I get back with my lover? And she has to go through these trials, which takes so much of her to develop her personality, makes it very impossible things that she does. And she finally goes through the trials, and I won't go into the details, and then she can get back to be with her love.
So the ancients knew that there is a journey in relationship of growing. And then at the end, you see how Eros has to grow too. He has to separate from his mother and stand on his own 2 feet. And so each the man and the woman both have a journey of individuation and development. And that's part of the fruits of a good marriage. And that our society doesn't see that it's worth doing that is because we're myopic. We don't have a vision anymore. And the purpose of life is to grow and develop oneself. There is an exception though. If you're married to someone who's addicted to any kind of drug or substance, there is no growth. There's no possibility of growth because drugs, sideline you from the growth process. Otherwise, your partnership has the potential to grow the distance. It's a matter of being committed to doing that. And hopefully, the society will wake up that what we're doing for our children and choosing the easy way out, as though it's easy, it's really not easy, is just very short-sighted.
And what we can add is that the whole purpose of life is not that it be easy. You don't have children because you want an easy life. You have children. Why do you want children for? It's such a difficult process. I mean, you love them when they're 1 and 2, but to love them when they're 13 and 14, oh my goodness, they're so problematic. But having children makes you grow so much. And then when you see your children having children, as we have 7 grandchildren, the quality of love is so much more intense than what you could have imagined when you were 13 or 14. You feel this great love, and you love your grandchildren, and you see their potential. And it's just not, the whole process of life is designed to have you grow and develop. And it's not designed to be a smooth ride.
So you guys have obviously committed a lot of your life in several different ways to marriage, both in your personal life, having been married for 50 years. You've written a book, The Marriage Map, and together you've guided over 30,000 clients to successful marriages. We're speaking around the issue, but why is marriage worth it? Like, why?
Well, do you want to stay in the consciousness of a 18-year-old your whole life?
I do not.
Yeah.
It's limited. It is what it is. It has its value, but it's limited. If you have a partner who knows you as almost as well as you know yourself, and you have constant feedback, your partner is the one person in your life who, by circumstance and commitment, will tell you the truth. Most people don't tell you the truth, but you get feedback like you can't get anyplace else. It's the best psychotherapy there is. And so you have a continuous self-improvement program over a lifetime to grow yourself. And otherwise, you're staying in the same place all the time, doing the same old things and making the same mistakes and having the same results.
Dude, freaking preach, doctor. Okay, so here's my thing. our culture, there's like so many like life coaches, motivational, like self-improvement people where it's like, yo, you wake up and you take an ice bath and then you go work out and then read my book and it'll be better. I'm like, no, that's not how you get better. If you're married, bro, you're going to be, it's the best self-improvement class that there is. Because
Yes.
this chick doesn't let me get away with anything.
That's because she believes in you and she wants great things for both of you. And that's the nature of, being in love and being coupled. And, and really a principle in life is to tell the truth and learn how to tell the truth. So it's not mean. And, you have a lifelong program. It's phenomenal.
In writing your book together, the marriage map, what was the biggest thing you learned about yourself? Because I feel like forever within marriage, you're constantly learning and growing. What did you guys learn about each other?
Well, that book was written quite a while ago. We have a new book out called Ageless Love. So,
Yes.
I think we learned that particular book. I think we learned how well we can work together, how much we enjoy thinking together, and that we have overlapping value goals in life, and one is to help sponsor this kind of development among our population, so that we need to grow wisdom in our culture. We're seriously lacking wisdom.
And so I would add that the Marriage Map book, we talk very personally about our growth journey, Barbara and I. And we had to think out very, very much how that journey is reflected in the changes that we talked about when you go close to those things you love and feeling more independent. And so I went through my understanding of what happened, had to write it down. And Barbara then went through her understanding and had to write it down. And there was a lot of interesting things, like Barbara had a friend that she loved very, very much, and that was her best friend. And she passed away. Barbara must have been like 50 years old then, something like that, maybe 55,
Something like that.
And she realized that after her best friend passed away, then she had to rely on me to be her best friend. And that took us to a deeper level of interacting with each other, where then she relied on me to be her best friend and to share all the personal stuff. And that pressed me to be able to share very personally. And that's the kind of thing we wrote down in this book, The Marriage Map, so that people can see the map of marriage, what happens over a lifetime and how each of you will change. And so that was a very personal thing that was very deep for us.
It's important to reflect, and part of being in the post-industrial age is that we have time to reflect. In different eras, there's less time. So you want to share deeply with each other.
I would love to hear more about Ageless Love, specifically your newest book, but maybe a good jumping off point would be, so Dr. Michael, you are in the anti-aging medicine world. Dr. Barbara, you have this deep training in marriage and family counseling. How do those two mesh? What's the correlation there?
Well, I think the most important factor, and we go into it in some detail in the book Ageless Love, is that the research on longevity is very surprising. This is like a 70-plus-year-old study from Harvard on the longevity factors for men who went to Harvard and for men who grew up in the local poorer section of Boston. And what they found was that in both groups, the most important factor in longevity after the age of 50 is the quality of your personal relationships.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. So here you are, if you're an anti-aging doctor and you're not working up with your patients to improve the quality of their personal relationship, you're ignoring the big elephant in the room. You've got to deal with that. So I do all kinds of things to keep people youthful. bioidentical hormones, all kinds of vitamins, nutrients, all kinds of things that are really critical for longevity. But you've got to also work on the quality of your personal relationships.
Sell me on anti-aging. I'm curious, why is that important to you? Like on the first glance, you're like, oh, anti-aging, okay. And then some people have the approach of like,
when you get to be 45, 55, 65 years old, you can be really interested in that. So the hormones change. For women, it's very quick. You're somewhere between 45 and 55 years old, and you go into menopause. Within a period of a year, your hormones drop dramatically, less estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and many other hormones. And that drop creates poor sleeping, irritability, brain fog, not sleeping good, decreased libido, less muscle stamina, endurance. You feel old. It's all reversible with natural bioidentical hormones. You feel 10 years younger quickly. I do it all the time. Men are a little different because for men, their testosterone doesn't drop dramatically. When you're 40 years old, it begins to drop, 50 less, 60 less, 70, much less. So it's a gradual drop for testosterone for men, but men will feel when they're 55, 65, they'll feel, oh, I feel old. I try to exercise and I just can't build muscle and I'm tired and my brain is not as clear and enthusiastic and my libido is not functioning. That happens to men. And when we replace the testosterone for men, they live longer and healthier than if they do nothing, and they feel 10, 20 years younger.
So this reflects your energy, your vitality, and your sexual function. You need all of that to have a hot relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a important part of enjoying life and to maintain mystery and passion in a romantic relationship. You need this youthfulness. Otherwise, it just becomes like a brother-sister relationship.
how do you two, after 50 years, the testosterone is very much physical. There's also the the mental alertness that you alluded to. But from a relationship standpoint, how do you cultivate this aura of curiosity in each other after 50 years of knowing one another?
We have great hobbies together. We're competitive ballroom dancers. We compete all over the country.
What?
And
That's incredible.
And there's excitement about dancing in the ballroom, and we have other hobbies together. We enjoy, meditation, and we have adventures with our grandchildren, our families. And Michael does so many exciting things. I'm so proud of him, and I'm not part of that. I just watch him, and I'm thrilled and excited about who he is. He's such a spectacular man.
I press Barbara to write books with me. Left by herself, she would just sit and read and read and read. Writing is like, oh my gosh, you gotta really be right out there. But I press her to write books. If she doesn't write them, I write them by myself. And then she says, "This is terrible. Let me help you here." And she helps me to write the book. And so, but that creates the mystery and passion because we're doing these things that we love doing. We have a dance show that we're going to perform another month for our friends and family. And we talk about all the things we talk about here, but we do it with music and we dance to it and we tell stories. So it's like a whole production. And so we have a lot of fun and that creates that passion because we're not sitting and watching television.
When we give courses, at the end of the course, we bring our couples to the dance studio. We bring our dance coach and they have a lesson. What the thing about ballroom dancing that's really fascinating is that it replicates the male and female roles, and it makes it juicy and exciting.
So in ballroom, the man has to lead and take care of the direction. The woman has to follow the man and extend the movements and be the flower where the man's the stem. So both have to be strong and stand on your own feet, but you have different roles and you learn, okay, I got to let the man do timing and direction, and I'm going to just float and extend all those movements. So each have your own roles. And so it teaches you.
And they're
how
both
to-
dynamic. They're both
Yeah.
dynamic roles. So no one's a slouch. No one's there, you're not a caboose on the train. You're both bringing all of your energy, but your roles are somewhat different. And it's a juicy reminder that we're a man and a woman. We're not just the same.
Have you ever heard of the show Dancing with the Stars? Because I know someone
Yes.
who won it.
So if you know someone, we'd love to be on that show.
Shawn has had pretty good success on that.
All right, so we're ready to go on the show. So
Okay. I'll let him know.
That would
It's a phenomenal show. It was
Yeah.
a lot of
Yes.
fun.
Our dance production was choreographed by Jonathan Roberts.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh my gosh.
we know him, and he helped produce our message.
Yeah, he was on my
Wow.
season as well. He's very
Nice.
sweet. He's a great guy.
Nice.
Okay, so I want to ask your personal advice on two subjects. One, we're in the parenting phase, young kids. We got a 2.5-year-old, 10-month-old. What advice do you have for us there? And then the second topic would be working with your spouse. But let's start with parenting.
We have a course specifically about parenting, and we teach couples how to parent together, which means, your children are young, but you need to come together and really define the rules. What's really important. So your message is the same and you deliver it the same. So your children don't get a better deal with either one of you. They don't learn to manipulate, and that you're consistent over time. And you shouldn't have more than, your kids are really young. Even when they're older, there shouldn't be more than 10 rules. And when they're older, a short list of chores. And everything that you want from your children is time framed, and there's accountability. So you show up and nothing happens in their world till they do what you want to do. And that's how you teach them how to be responsible, how to keep their word. And that's what keeps the two of you working together and not divided. You don't want your children making special deals with either one of you. First of all, it's manipulative. And second of all, it divides you as a team.
Wow.
And I would add that it's very important to enforce the rules gently, but firmly, particularly when they're in the 2-year age. Because by the time they're 4, they learn to remember and fight about things. It's much harder to correct bad behavior in a 4 or 5-year-old who it remembers that this is the way they want it. When you correct them when they're 2, they don't even remember what happened when they're 3. So you want to set the rules and boundaries when they're young, and you both will sit together and just say, here's the rules for the household. We have bedtime, we have how to eat. This is when they get their clothes. They have to pick them up and put them away, and they have to handle the cleanups. You teach them what it is, and it's just a thing, an automatic thing. The kids will do whatever you want. They'll object a little bit, but once they learn that they have to do it, then it happens. It's automatic. So you're doing great, and you follow that advice. We have a series of 5 video courses that are like 3 20-minute videos with homework that we teach you about parenting, and then we have 4 other things for a relationship, and they cost like $37 for a course, and people can get them online. They're really, really helpful, and they talk about these very practical things. Each course is designed to be practical for the couple.
Right. So if you invest in making your rules and being consistent, you teach your kids there's no point in resisting. It makes your life easier. It makes their life clear, and everyone wins.
Right. And arguing is not allowed. You never argue with your children. Once you argue with your children, you get given away all your power. And you don't argue with a fly. You don't argue with an ant. You're in control. With your children, you just set the rules nicely, firmly, say, nevertheless, this is the rule of the house.
Nevertheless, bedtime is 8 p.m.
Yeah.
But mom, I want to stay. Nevertheless, bedtime is 8 p.m. Go to bed.
Huh.
And you stand firm with that, whether it's mom talking or dad talking. There's no better deal in the house.
I like that.
So you clearly have a long history of working together with the books, with the courses. How have you done so successfully?
Well, we've faced the same challenges everybody faces, and we've learned out of our mistakes. We've learned, I have 2 children, and they're wonderful, they're bright, and they're charming. And when I was raising my children, it was really hard to say no. And so I've made every mistake possible, and I had to learn to correct my mistakes. And it's humbling, but it has taught me that you can, out of good intentions and love, you can make life harder for everybody.
So to answer your question about how do we work together, so we work together really well now because we know how not to work together. So one way that we don't work together is to try to sit on the same computer and give someone advice. So only until Barbara asks me, oh, can you help me to do this? Then I come by and I fix her little thing, because she likes to do things her way on the computer and whatever it is. And so she has her own business within the medical office that I run. She has her room, sees her patients. And I wish she would ask me for more advice, but sometimes she does, because she runs the business the way she runs it. I wouldn't run the business the way she runs it, but that's the way she runs it. So I just accept that. And we have to appreciate when you look at your partner and you see them from afar. Barbara is such a great counselor. She is incredibly good. And it's so much fun to see her in that role. And I say, wow, isn't that great? But I know in other roles where she's not the great counselor, where, she's worried about losing something because she lost her father when she's 2, and now she's gone into that role. And I just see the different pieces of her. And so, but just accepting each other. And then you can see how great they are in so many ways. And then, there's other ways where they have their stuff.
So we have our separate domains and we respect each other. And then we have projects we come together in, and we have different skills. And so we do different things that contribute to the projects. And we choose them well. What excites us, we do together, and what is separate, we do separately. And it's the balance is great.
Last question from me, and then we can close. Dr. Barbara, not only are you a licensed therapist, but you also have a background in theology and religion. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious what the overlap is there. How are those integrated?
Well, I enjoyed those years being in a seminary. My exploration into the foundation of our civilization, the ancient foundation of our civilization, contains wisdom that our secular society has largely forgotten. But even the stories, old stories of what it means to be, what it means to grow and become a mature and wise person, they're embedded in all of our ancient stories. We call it religion, but it's really the repository of our culture's wisdom. And that gave me an orientation about what's important in life. And from there, I saw the dynamics of relationships. It's so important to have healthy relationships. That's, much of our biblical heritage is about the quality of relationships, what works and what doesn't work. And so I feel like I have a kind of deep foundational knowledge about what life is from studying religion and historical reflections, whether it's the Greek tradition or the Hebraic tradition or the Christian tradition. It's all wisdom, and it helps me understand what's important and what's not.
Wow, I think I grunted more in this episode because of all the good things that were said than in any other episode. So thank you for that. And as Dr. Michael and Dr. Barbara mentioned, they recently released another book called Ageless Love. We'll link the information down below. as well as other information about these two. But I can't thank you guys enough for joining us. Maybe we'll see you on the ballroom floor. And thank you for. Go ahead.
I can mention that if people are interested in looking up some of our courses, agelesslovequiz.com, that will get your listeners to a website, and they could take a little quiz and see which challenges are the most intense for them, and then they will have opportunity to see what practical skills they can learn by going on that agelesslovequiz.com.
We'll have to go take that right now.
There you have it, agelesslovequiz.com.
Yeah.
Thank you both for your time, and I look forward to hopefully future conversations.
Be a pleasure.
Really, we wish you love.
Thank you.